Good morning. Are you digging out of that snow? We just got absolutely slammed here. Hope your Tuesday is going great. It is, I guess, what I've sort of just started calling Inspiration Week here on the daily videos I am making as I cast a vision to offer to be your mayor as we build up St. Stephen together. Yesterday we talked about Macadam and how inspired I have been by their mayor, Ken Stanix, and the vision of making their heritage their future. And it really revolves around the industry, the business activity, the infrastructure that exists around their railway history, railway tracks, railway stations, infrastructure, the land, all the things. If you're curious about that and missed it, head back to watch that video about yesterday. Today I want to talk about another community that found itself on the ropes in the 80s and completely revitalized. It's the little town that did it, I believe, is their slogan. I think I'm getting that right. And obviously that happened a long time. The 80s is a long time ago. I was born in 79, so that's old. That's a long time ago. But I do want to start out by just kind of telling you this story. Before I start, though, I want to say I am not suggesting that St. Stephen is by any means on the ropes or in decline. In fact, the opposite is true since I moved here, largely because of what I saw happening at the Civic Center and that incredible asset we have, which requires upkeep and things like that. So I have talked about balance sheets, something that is a social asset can on the balance sheet actually be a liability, needs to be paid for with people moving here, paying property taxes, etc. So sometimes I guess I use those expressions interchangeably. Liability, asset, a community asset can actually be something that can be quite expensive to maintain. And that's why we have to be careful when we talk about revitalizing things like the airport or making other really exciting plans, putting more roads, putting more pipes. They all have to be paid for. But Chemainus, BC. I promised myself I wouldn't say Chemainus, but there I did right away. Chemainus, BC is a really great example of a community that really got slammed in the 1980s. So in 1981, they, I believe, let me get this right here. They received some funding in 1981. It was like something kicked off in 81. They received some downtown revitalization funding from the province of BC. So they started to work on, kind of like we're doing here in St. Stephen, improving their downtown facades, installing benches, some planters, things like that, just making their downtown a place that people would want to be. Of course, that encouraged some business activity and they were feeling really good about things. But then in 1983, their main source of jobs and industry shut down. The sawmill, which was a critical part of Chemainus on Vancouver Island because of some changing economic factors in BC and the shipping lanes, etc. They closed the sawmill. The sawmill just went under, which meant many people found themselves unemployed and the town's existence was really threatened. We're talking about 3,000, just under 3,000 people, depending on what stats you read. Let's just say an average of 3,000 people. And so that was a major blow right in the wake of, as we were saying, their kind of sense of optimism of getting funding and revitalizing their downtown. But what happened next is really the source of inspiration. There was a businessman there named, I believe his name was Carl Schultz. And he painted murals. He had done a few murals downtown as part of the revitalization project. And he, along with the council, Graham Bruce was the mayor at the time, and together they thought about it, kind of like yesterday, I talked about making an assessment of what can you do, where do you want to go, and what do you have. And Carl said, well, I can paint more murals. And so the council together, they decided to launch the Festival of Murals. Such a quaint little idea when you're talking about a town that has been just slammed with unemployment and their main industry shutting down. I've talked yesterday. You can imagine like Ganong and the flakeboard factory, Ruko, just kind of going down. How devastating that would be. That's kind of what happened there. They launched the Festival of Murals with that community leadership. They got everyone involved. So people started painting murals. They invited people to create more murals. Children got involved. Children and their teachers' schools started painting paths on the sidewalks to lead people to the murals throughout town. And it got to the point where there were 50 murals all throughout town, which led to many more grants and funding, and the downtown started to revitalize, and it became a major tourist attraction, which allowed them to build $1 million arts buildings in the main downtown district. I mean, we're not talking just, okay, a nice place where people want to walk around. It became a cultural hub because of the vision of the mayor and the council and the local business person and artist who said, hey, let's pivot and make this a place that people want to visit. And I saw a couple interviews online of, the logging boys, the teenage boys, the young men. They were kind of saying the sawmill is just where you went to work. Suddenly the sawmill is out of work. And so you had all these tough guys who are used to working in the lumber industry, realizing it's time to pivot to an arts and culture focus. And they did it. The entire town got involved. And I really credit that with the leadership of the town, right? That is the kind of thing where leadership makes a difference and says, here's what can happen if we go in this direction. You always want evidence-based solutions. They really believe that this would attract tourism because there was a proximity to the ferry terminals there. They realized it was a place where people would likely visit on their way to the ferry terminals and their proximity to Nanaimo and on the path of traffic, that kind of thing. And they said, hey, we've got all this going on. Let's make this a place where people want to stop and visit. So I won't belabor the point too much. There's more I could say. The sawmill actually came back online in 1985, which is really important when we talk about St. Stephen's potential. And I looked into it specifically. The sawmill came back online and they developed their industrial park, which attracted manufacturing businesses, post-manufacturing for the sawmill and that kind of thing. And I'm just positing that out there, again, not as a prescription of what St. Stephen needs to do by any means, but this is the kind of difference that leadership makes and how it illustrates how you need and how we could definitely benefit from tourism, which we definitely are talking about with an airport with more capacity. There are going to be challenges around that because, like I say, the municipality owns it. And if we start upgrading that and putting the fees for that, the cost of that onto the taxpayer, that's not ideal because, again, of how balance sheets work, but that's something we need to tackle because increased tourism through the airport and also through the basketball court and revitalizing our downtown. That's why I'm looking at other examples where this has been done and can be done. Now, of course, that's a long time ago with Chemainus. They have become quite famous for that. In 2011, though, they did need a total reset, a new revitalization plan, because again, that's a long time ago, the 80s. They had to completely recalibrate what they're doing. And then in my research around Chemainus, I just saw that in January 2026, the mayor had an open town hall where he invited people to join. I believe his name was Bob Douglas. And invited everyone to come and say, what is the next chapter in Chemainus? We have this going, we have that going, they have this state-of-the-art theater, and there are challenges because a lot of the activity that was happening was from government grants and funding for the arts, and when that ends, when you stop, when that money stops coming in that way, you have to make sure that you have industry and businesses that can support all that activity. So there will always be challenges. What's the next thing we need to do? What's the next thing we can do? And Chemainus is an example of that. Chemainus is an example of how arts and culture and tourism, when paired with business and industry and development of economic activity, can make a business make a community, a municipality thrive and be sustainable. And that's exactly what we need in the future. And it's all spearheaded by members of the community, the business community, people who can bring their talents, gifts, and skills. And that's all facilitated by a mayor and a council who are hungry to make that happen for each and every one of us as we share in this common good together, bring together all the good things we have going. So that's Chemainus. Hopefully you're inspired by that. I am. You know, it's an old story, but the 80s, 2011, and this community is thriving. Every community has its challenges, but that could have really taken them out. St. Stephen, we are on the edge, I believe, of a major renaissance. We have so many great things going for us. And that's why I'm just kind of saying to you, I believe that I would be the person to spearhead where we're going together, to bring the people, places, gifts, talents, and skills with the recognition, again, that it can't just be tourism, or it can't just be business, can't just be downtown. All these pieces work together when we come together and build up St. Stephen together. Speaking of which, buildupststephen.ca, that is my website. You can check out my priorities, my commitments, and the action plan by which we would make decisions like this in the future. I've said it before, within the first year of my being mayor, I would really like us to have a direction like this, goals that we can reverse engineer, a horizon that we're all heading towards, because a community that doesn't have a goal is going to end up somewhere else. And we need to know where we're going and what we're doing so that we can all thrive together. Thanks, friends. Take care of yourself. Take care of your neighbor. Hopefully you're done shoveling today, and we'll see you tomorrow. BuildUpStStephen.ca. See ya.